Rain fell like memory that night in Shanghai. It wasn't just water. It was the sound of old sins being washed off steel and concrete. Streetlights flickered like dying stars, and somewhere deep inside the maze of neon, a small diner stayed open. Its light was soft, its warmth fragile, and inside it, a girl named Lin wiped the same table again and again, as if she could erase her own past one circle at a time. She was 26. Quiet, careful, the kind of person who smiled even when her heart hurt. Her mother was sick, lungs maybe worse. Hospital bills kept piling like ghosts she couldn't bury, but tonight, she just wanted silence. Then, her phone buzzed, a message from June, her ex, her mistake. "You can't hide from me." Her breath hitched. She turned the screen face down. The rain outside hit harder, almost angry now. And just when she thought she could breathe again, the bell above the door rang. Man walked in, tall, gray coat. Eyes calm, like the kind that had already seen the end of the world and somehow survived it. He didn't look dangerous, but the room seemed to change around him, like it was afraid to move. He took a seat by the window, didn't say a word, just watched the rain. "Tea or coffee?" she asked. He looked up, his voice low, steady. "Jasmine. Hot." She nodded, poured. A drop spilled on his hand. She panicked. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He smiled. "A small one. It's only tea." But that smile stayed with her, soft, kind, completely out of place on a man who carried thunder in his silence. Some strangers carry storms. Others carry shelter. He carried both. She turned away. Her hands shook for no reason she could explain. She'd seen tired men before, but not men who looked like they'd buried whole worlds. He sat there, sipping tea like time didn't touch him. No phone. No company. No rush. Only stillness. Then, the door slammed. June, drunk. Angry, eyes red, voice sharp. "In. You think you can ignore me?" He grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave marks. Before she could even react, the man in gray stood. "Let her go," he said. June turned, sneering. "Who the hell are you?" The stranger didn't answer, didn't raise his voice, didn't move, but something in his eyes changed. A calmness so cold it could freeze fire. June hesitated. Just for a second, and in that second, he saw it. The truth. This was no ordinary man. Because you can't fake that kind of stillness. Only men who've killed learn to hold peace like that. June muttered, backed away, and stumbled out. The bell above the door trembled in the wind. And the diner fell silent again. Except for the rain. Lin looked at the stranger. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. He replied. "No one should get used to fear." He stayed until closing. Didn't flirt. Didn't pride. He just listened. Listened when she told him about her mother. About the hospital. About how sometimes she felt invisible. He didn't pity her. He simply said, "Kindness is the rarest form of strength." Before leaving, he placed an envelope and a black card on the counter. "If you ever need help," he said, "call this number. Just say Lin." Then he was gone. No goodbye, no name. Just the scent of rain and jasmine tea left behind. She opened the envelope. Money. Enough to pay for her mother's surgery. And a note. "You reminded me of who I was before the world made me forget." Tears hit the ink. And that night, a ghost left his past on a counter, while a girl who'd lost her faith found proof that kindness still existed. But the city doesn't forget easily. 2 nights later, a black car parked across the street, windows tinted, engine running, watching. Lin didn't notice, but the man in gray did. From a rooftop 4 blocks away. Li Wei watched through a sniper scope, not to kill, but to protect. He was supposed to be dead. The news said he vanished after the Hong Kong blood Syndicate war, after burning cities just to bury his own enemies. But Li Wei survived. He disappeared from the world he'd built, and now, in the soft glow of a diner, he'd found something he thought he'd lost, the ability to care again. He whispered to the night, "Let her stay innocent, even if I have to stay in the dark forever." He closed the scope, disappeared into the shadows. The rain kept falling, and somewhere inside that storm, a past began to wake. Shanghai never really sleeps. It just shifts between nightmares. The rain stopped that night, but the city still whispered. Neon signs flickered like warning lights, and deep inside an abandoned warehouse near the harbor, men moved like shadows. Guns, crates, and on a screen, his face. Li Wei, a voice echoed from the darkness. "The dragon lives." Find him before he finds us. The Dragon Syndicate, once the most feared criminal empire in East Asia, had been torn apart from the inside. Its leader, Li Wei, was a ghost story now. Parents whispered his name to scare their children. Enemies prayed they'd never see his face. But ghosts don't die easily. 3 days after the diner incident, Lin sits by her mother's hospital bed. Her mother's breathing is softer now. Healing. The doctor says the surgery was successful. And Lin thanks heaven, not knowing the devil paid for it. Outside the hospital, a man in a gray coat leans against a car, watching from afar. Li Wei, he hasn't slept in 3 days. He doesn't know how to anymore. He watches Lin smile through the glass and thinks, that's what peace looks like. But peace is a luxury he'll never afford. Flashback. 10 years earlier, Hong Kong. The rain was the same, but Li Wei was different. Younger, ruthless, and feared. They called him Long Wei, the dragon. The man who burned cities to the ground to build his empire. Every rival he faced disappeared. Some buried, some drowned, none remembered. He had everything. Power, loyalty, a family of blood. But he also had an enemy closer than he realized. Zhen Luo. His right-hand man. Zhan had ambition. And ambition eats loyalty like fire eats air. One night, during a meeting in Kowloon, the betrayal came. Bullets tore through glass and men fell like dominoes. Li Wei survived, barely. Zhen took over the empire and blamed it all on Wei. From that day, the dragon vanished, and the world moved on. Except, the underworld never forgets. Back in the present, Li Wei sits inside a cheap motel room, staring at the envelope Lin touched. Her fingerprints are still there. For a man who once lived surrounded by death, it feels strange to care about fingerprints. His burner phone vibrates. A single message lights up the screen. We know where she works. You can't hide forever. Li Wei's jaw tightens. He types back only one word. Try. He loads his pistol, but this time not to kill, to protect. The diner. Lin's routine continues. Same tables. Same music. But lately she's felt eyes on her. Sometimes across the street. Sometimes in the reflection of the glass. She tells herself it's paranoia. Until one night, it isn't. A man in a black suit walks in. No order. No smile. He just sits and waits. Lin feels it instantly. The same chill she felt the night June stormed in, except this man isn't drunk. He's focused, too focused. Tea or coffee? She asks. Neither, he says. You're Lin, right? She freezes. How do you? The bell above the door rings again. Li Wei walks in gray coat. Calm eyes, but this time, his calm looks dangerous. The man in black stands, and in one breath, the quiet diner turns into a battlefield waiting to happen. Li Wei steps forward. Leave, he says to Lin. Go to the back. She doesn't move. She can't. Who are they? She whispers. The man in black smirks. So this is where you hide, dragon. Her heart stops. Dragon. She looks at Li Wei, confused, terrified. He says nothing. Then gunfire. Fast. Precise. Li Wei moves before the sound even ends. .1 bullet. .1 down. Another rushes in through the door. Li Wei grabs Lin, pulls her behind the counter. Stay down. Who are you? She cries. The man who should have never walked into your life. Glass shatters, bullets tear through neon. Outside, tires screech inside. Lin's diner turns into a war zone. When it ends, there's silence again. Only the rain and the smell of smoke. Li Wei holsters his gun, looks at her trembling hands. I'm sorry, he says. You didn't deserve this. Tell me who you are, she demands, but he just whispers. Someone the world is better off forgetting. He hands her a new phone. If you get a message that says, rainfall, run. Don't look back. He turns to leave. She grabs his sleeve. Why me? He looks at her one last time. Because you made me remember what mercy feels like. And then he disappears into the storm. That night, Lin cries until the city sleeps. The man who saved her was no hero. He was the monster from the news. The same name that once painted the streets are Li Wei. The dragon. But somewhere between his crimes and her kindness, something human had begun to live again. The night smelled like smoke and secrets. Shanghai's harbor pulsed with danger. Ships floated like dark giants under the moonlight, and the wind carried whispers of the old world. A world that never forgives. Li Wei sat inside an abandoned warehouse by the pier. gun resting beside him, eyes on the water. He had been waiting for Zhen, for the ghosts, for the past. But fate came sooner than expected. Back at the diner, Lin was closing early. The city was quieter than usual. Too quiet. Her hands shook as she turned the sign to close. That's when she smelled it. The air was heavy, poisonous. She stepped outside and saw them. Two men. Black coats. Cigarettes glowing like little devils. One poured the last of the fuel. The other struck a match. No, she ran forward. Stop. Too late. The flame touched the ground, and her diner, her little piece of peace, erupted. Fire swallowed her world in seconds. She stumbled back, coughing, screaming. Someone grabbed her hand and pulled her away. Li Wei. He appeared from nowhere, coat soaked in rain, eyes burning harder than the fire. Don't look, he said, pulling her close, but she couldn't stop staring. Everything she worked for, gone in orange and smoke. She broke down in his arms, trembling. He held her tighter, whispering, "They wanted me, not you. I'm sorry. Why won't you just leave me alone?" she cried. "Because they'll kill you to get to me." Hours later, midnight. The harbor was alive again. Trucks, weapons, men in suits. Zhen Luo stood by a container ship, cigarette between his fingers, his voice calm, cruel, controlled. "When the dragon comes, don't shoot the girl. She's the bait, he's the prize." Li Wei watched from the shadows. His men were gone, his empire dust, but his rage still alive. He checked his pistol. .1 magazine. 7 bullets, that would have to be enough. He looked at Lin, hiding behind crates, eyes wide, terrified but brave. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "I couldn't stay behind," she said. "If you die because of me, what does that make me?" He almost smiled. Even surrounded by monsters, she still chose compassion. He hadn't seen that in years. Zhen's men fanned out, snipers on the cranes, cars blocking exits. The harbor lights flickered on, and the sound of engines echoed through the docks. Then, silenced, a single footstep. Li Wei stepped into the open. No mask. No fear. Just the ghost of a man who'd burned the world and come back for its ashes. Zhen grinned. Well, well, the dragon rises. Li Wei's voice was low, controlled. You betrayed your brothers. You burned my name. Now I'm here to end what you started. Zhen chuckled. You should have stayed dead. Then came the storm. Gunfire exploded across the harbor, echoing against the metal, and as Li Wei moved like a shadow through flame. Precise, deadly, each bullet a memory. Each hit a confession. He fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. And maybe that's why he survived, but Zhen was no fool. He aimed higher, toward Lin. Tell me, dragon, Zhen shouted, reloading. How much blood will you spill for her? Lin ducked behind a crate, hands over her ears. Li Wei's eyes went wild. The calm was gone now. Only fury remained. He fired, once, twice. 3 times. Men fell. Then he saw Zhen aiming at Lin. Li Wei ran, diving between them as the bullet fired. Pain, sharp, deep. The world tilted. He hit the ground hard, blood soaking his coat. Lin screamed, crawling to him. No. Stay with me. He coughed, eyes half open. Don't cry, it doesn't suit you. She pressed her hands over the wound. Don't you dare leave me now. Zhen approached slowly, gun raised. Poetic, isn't it? The dragon dying for a waitress. But then Li Wei smiled. Check your pocket. Zhen frowned. Inside his coat, a grenade pinned up. Boom. The explosion tore through the dock. Water, fire, and chaos swallowed everything. When the smoke cleared, Lin woke on the pier, blood on her face, waves crashing below. The harbor was gone. Half of it burned, the other half sinking. Li Wei was nowhere. She screamed his name into the smoke. Wei. Only silence answered. Days passed. Hospitals. Police, they said no bodies were found. Only ashes, metal, and myths. Weeks later, Lin sat in the hospital garden with her mother. She smiled, but her eyes were empty. Then, a letter arrived, no sender. Just her name, inside. A red envelope, a photograph, the two of them in the diner, and on the back, written in black ink. Monsters die when they choose to protect instead of destroy. But I'm still breathing. Somewhere rain still falls. Her tears hit the page. She looked to the sky. It was raining again, and somewhere out there, the dragon still walked among the living. No longer the monster who burned cities, but the man who'd learned what it meant to save one. Some people die to find peace. Others live to earn it. Shanghai moved on as it always does. Forgetting faces, replacing names, rebuilding what fire destroys. But for Lin, time stopped the night the harbor burned. She'd lost her diner, lost her safety, lost the one man who'd made her believe monsters could change. Every time it rained, she'd whisper, "Are you still out there, Wei?" And every time the thunder answered instead. 2 months passed. Lin worked double shifts at a new cafe, smaller but quiet. Her mother was recovering well. Laughing again. One morning the mail arrived. A single red envelope, no return address, no message outside. Just her name, Lin Mei. Inside was a key and a note. "You once said home was wherever the rain didn't reach. Go to 27 River Street. It's yours now." She froze. River Street was one of the safest neighborhoods in Shanghai. Far beyond anything she could afford. Hands trembling, she took a taxi. The house was simple, white walls. Bamboo in the yard, the sound of rain softly touching the roof inside. Furniture was new, untouched, and on the kitchen counter, a cup of jasmine tea, still warm. Her heart raced. He had been there, he was there. "Li Wei," she called softly. Silence. Then, from the back room, a voice. "Don't scream." She turned, and there he was. Alive, thinner, eyes darker, but softer somehow. She ran to him. Stopped halfway, tears hit her cheeks before her steps did. "You're alive." He nodded. "Barely." She wanted to hug him, to curse him, to ask why he left. Instead, she whispered, "Why can't you just stay gone? You make everything hurt." He looked down. "Because every time it rains, I remember you standing in the fire, and I can't forget that I was the reason." They sat across from each other. The silence between them was heavy, but it wasn't empty. Lin asked quietly, "Why me, Wei? Out of everyone, why save me?" He sighed. "When I ran the syndicate, I ordered deaths without looking at faces. One night years ago, we hit a target in Suzhou, a man who owed us money. He begged for his family's life, and I didn't care." His voice broke. "There was a little girl, hiding under the table, watching. I remember her eyes. She had your eyes." Lin's breath caught. "My father, he was killed by the syndicate." Wei's voice dropped to a whisper. "I know." The world tilted. Lin stood, shaking. It was you? I didn't pull the trigger. But I gave the order." Tears slid down his face now. "I didn't come back to be forgiven, Lin. I came back because I couldn't live knowing I destroyed the light I later fell in love with." She slapped him hard. "Don't you dare say that word." He didn't move, didn't defend himself, just stood there and took the pain. "I'm not asking for your love," he said. "Only your permission to protect you. Jin's men are still alive. They'll come." Her voice trembled. "I should hate you." "You should," he said softly. "But hate won't keep you safe." She turned away, crying. He left her to her tears, because for the first time, the dragon didn't know how to fight something he couldn't kill. That night, Lin dreamed of her father. He was sitting at their old dinner table, smiling, saying, "Even monsters can kneel before mercy." When she woke, she found a note by her bedside. "I'll be near. I'll never enter this house again unless you call." He kept his word. Days turned to weeks. Sometimes she'd see him across the street, standing in the rain, watching, never approaching, never asking, only guarding, and every time she saw him, her heart broke and healed a little more. Meanwhile, deep within the city's underbelly, chaos was brewing. Jin Luo was gone, but his brother Rai Luo had returned from Tokyo. Colder, smarter, and burning for revenge. "He burned my brother's empire. I'll burn his hope." Rai's first move, he sent men disguised as delivery workers. One afternoon, when Lin opened the door to her new home, a man smiled. "Package for Ms. Lin." The next second, the barrel of a gun was pressed to her ribs. "Where's Wei?" he demanded before she could answer. A window shattered, a flash of gray. Li Wei crashed through the glass like a storm reborn. 3 bullets. 3 men down. He grabbed Lin and pulled her behind the counter. "Did they hurt you?" She shook her head, crying. "How did you know?" His voice was calm, steady. "I never stopped watching." That night, they stayed hidden in a safe house by the river. Lin sat by the window, staring at the rain. "You could have left me to die," she said. "I tried," he replied. "Every day. But every road led back to you." She looked at him. Really looked. The man who once ruled death was now afraid of her forgiveness. She whispered, "My father would have hated you, but I don't know if I can." He smiled faintly. "That's the cruelest mercy." Lightning lit the room, and in that brief flash, their eyes met, and something in both of them gave up pretending. She leaned forward. He froze. For a moment, time stopped, but before her lips touched his, he turned away. "I can't," he whispered. "I'm still the man who destroyed your family." She placed her hand on his. "Then spend the rest of your life rebuilding what you broke." And for the first time Li Wei smiled, not the smile of a killer or a savior, but of a man finally learning what peace might feel like. Every storm must end, but some rains never stop. They fall inside us forever. Shanghai was quiet that night. Too quiet. The kind of silence that comes before blood. Li Wei knew it. Rai Luo was coming, and this time there would be no mercy. Not for him, not for Lin. Wei sat by the window, gun on the table, eyes lost in the storm outside. Lin walked up behind him. "You haven't slept in days," she said. "I can't afford to." She touched his shoulder. "You can't fight your past forever." He turned to her, eyes filled with something deeper than fear. "Then let me die fighting for my future." Tears slipped down her cheek. "I'm not your redemption, Wei." He smiled sadly. "No, you're my reason to try." He stood, handed her a small locket. Inside was a picture. Lin and her mother at the old diner, printed from a surveillance still. It kept it. "All this time. If I don't come back," he said quietly, "don't wait for me." Her voice cracked. "I'll wait anyway." Midnight, warehouse district. The sound of thunder mixed with gunfire. Wei moved like a ghost through the chaos. Silent, ruthless, precise. Every shot a memory. Every kill a confession. He was outnumbered, 10-1, but he fought like a man who had already died once. Then Rai appeared. Calm, slow clapping in the rain. "So the dragon still breathes." Wei raised his gun. "You should have stayed in Tokyo." Rai smirked. "You burned my brother. Now I'll burn your hope." The two men circled each other. Thunder rolled. And then, fire. The fight was brutal. Fists. Guns. Rain mixing with blood on concrete. Rai's blade caught Wei's shoulder. Deep. Wei staggered but didn't fall. "You think you can erase what you were?" Rai spat. "Once a killer, always a killer." Wei grabbed Rai's wrist, twisted, and slammed him into the wall. "Then I'll kill what I used to be." He pulled the trigger point. One shot. Rai dropped, eyes wide, disbelief frozen forever. Wei collapsed beside him, clutching his wound. The rain poured harder, washing blood down the street like tears from heaven. Lin found him minutes later, following the sound of distant gunfire. "Wei!" she screamed, running through the storm. He was on the ground, bleeding, barely conscious. She dropped to her knees, pulling him into her arms. He smiled weakly. "You came. I told you I'd wait." She pressed her hands against his wound, crying, "Don't you dare leave me now." He whispered, voice fading, "Do you remember what I told you about the rain?" She nodded, sobbing. "That it's where we hide our pain." He smiled. "Then let it rain forever for me." His hand slipped from hers, his eyes stayed open, looking at her one last time, as if to say thank you. Lightning flashed, and just like that, the dragon was gone. Days later, the city moved on again, but Lin didn't. She visited his grave every week. A simple stone by the river, no name, no title, just an inscription. He found peace in the rain. She opened the locket he gave her. Inside, now a tiny folded note she'd never seen before. "If there's another life, I'll find you sooner." Li Wei. She smiled through her tears, and when the rain began to fall, she whispered into the wind, "Then I'll wait for you again." Some stories don't end, they just change shape. Love doesn't always save you. Sometimes it redeems you. This is Mafia Hearts, where love bleeds but never dies. Comment below where you're watching from and tell me if Li Wei deserved forgiveness.